I'm going to walk you through the installation of the J&L oil separator for your CRV. Included in the J&L kit, it's an oil separator, mounting bracket, mounting screws, hose clamp, and zip tie. The tools you'll need for installation: it's a 10mm socket, extension, and ratchet, a pair of needle nose pliers, a pair of standard pliers, a pair of dikes or pliers with a cutting edge, a standard screwdriver, a Phillips head screwdriver, and light oil. Let's get started. Now our first step is we need to remove this resonator box, part of the intake system. It's got two 10mm bolts, and then we're going to remove these two clamps off of these two hoses here. So you're going to grab your pair of pliers, squeeze those clamps, and then work these clamps off. That. These bolts will actually stay in the box. You don't have to remove them. So just loosen them all the way up. You can leave them in there though. And then the box has one grommet in the back that you're going to pull it out of. So you're going to pull the box forward to get it out of that grommet, and then work it off these hoses. Next, we're going to work on mounting our oil separator bracket. We're going to remove this 10mm bolt that's right behind the oil fill cap. We're also going to cut this zip tie off that is holding this wire harness. So I'm going to start with actually cutting the zip tie because that's going to allow me more space to get to that bolt. So just clip that. And then you're going to grab your J&L mounting bracket. And you're going to use that same bolt. You'll notice that this hole is a little elongated and it's not perfectly lined up. You want to make sure you don't cross thread this bolt. So what I suggest you do is take your socket off of your ratchet. First, get everything lined up. This bracket's going to go in between these two harnesses. You can actually tuck this black harness right behind these hose clamps to keep that out of the way, and then drop that in there. And then I want to just try to start this by hand, and actually I got pretty lucky on that one. You may have to push on these lines to kind of flex that bracket over if it's giving you a hard time starting, but I'm not going to tighten that bolt up yet. All right, now we're going to locate our PCV line, which is this line here. It's running to the valve cover, to the intake manifold, and we're going to have to remove this line. There's a hose clamp on each side, a squeeze clamp. I'm going to slide that back, and you'll have to break this free. You're going to grab the hose with your pair of pliers. Don't squeeze very, very tight. And you're just going to grab it and twist it. And then you might have to work it back a little bit to get it closer to the barb while you pull the hose. And the hose will come off. And you're going to have to do the same thing to the line here. So again, I'm going to squeeze the clamp, slide the clamp up. This one's a little trickier. So go ahead and get that in there, again, on the barb. And that came right off. Now this hose was installed like this in the vehicle. We're going to flip it. So the side that was at the valve cover is going to go to the intake. I'm going to rotate my clamp along, I'm going to push that down onto the fitting. I'm not going to move my clamp yet in case I need to pivot this hose, because this hose is going to connect to our oil separator. Right, now we need to mount our oil separator to our bracket. Just line up the logos. Use the supplied screws. Start them by hand. And then go ahead and tighten them up with your screwdriver. All right, we're gonna go ahead and make our connections. I'm gonna use a little bit of oil inside the factory line. Again, if you have a Q-tip, you just wanna lubricate this so it will easily slide up the fitting of the J&L oil separator. So I'm going to push that all the way on, and then I'm going to slide my clamp up. You may have to put it in from the side to give it some space. Like that. And then I can go ahead and slide my other clamp down at the intake. Like that. And then on our hose to our intake, I pre-installed the clamp. Notice that the screw head for the clamp is on the outside of the hose, so that will make it easily accessible to us. I am going to lubricate. Now we're going to lubricate this line. And I'm actually going to put a little oil on the fitting itself too. So that pushes right on. We have to slide our clamp up. And then I'm going to tighten that clamp up. Now you can tighten this clamp up with a flathead screwdriver or a 1/4 inch nut driver. The nut driver does make it a lot easier. And you just want to tighten up to seal air. You don't want to crank down on it. That's a plastic fitting. Think of how tight these little spring clamps are. They're not very tight. So that completes that. Now we just need to tighten up our bracket. So I'm going to pivot this bracket just a little bit away from these hoses and then tighten up that 10mm bolt. Now we're actually going to rotate these little clamps that are on these vacuum lines. If you just stick your finger under there, they push pretty easy. They're not very strong. I'm just going to rotate them to the other side. And what this is going to do is I'm going to pull my harness back up here. And that's going to keep that away from that sharp clamp. And then this is where we're going to re-zip tie this as it was before. So I'm going to go inside of this white harness, around this black one, and then in between these two lines. And I'm not going to make it really, really tight, just enough to secure it, to keep it away from the sharp clamp and the bracket for long-term use. So once I have that where I want it, cut the zip. Lastly, we're going to reinstall the air box that we removed earlier. This stud goes into this grommet. So just keep that in mind. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to align it with my hoses and push those all the way in. And then I'm going to line up that stud and feed that in. And then you line up your bolts. Start your bolts by hand. And then go and tighten those down. Now we want to reinstall our clamps. Little one. And big one. Look over all your connections. Make sure you didn't leave anything loose. But that should complete your installation. Your average collection on these oil separators is about 1 ounce every 1,000 miles. The can holds 3 ounces. We do suggest at about 500 miles or so to check it for the first time, get an idea of how much your specific vehicle is putting into the can. In the winter months, you may notice additional collection between condensation forming in the can due to cold temperatures. If you can't remember to check your can every couple thousand miles, I would suggest setting a reminder in your cell phone on your calendar. You can set a reoccurring event to remind you once a month, every 5 weeks, depending on how much you drive. But do be sure to check it. Now on this one, it is pretty tight to get back here. You can get your hand on it, but if you wanted access to this can, being all these hoses are flexible, you could remove these 2 screws, pull the oil separator out, and actually get your full hand to remove it. So that is an option for you too. We thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please reach out. We'll see you on the next one.